Let's start with an easy one, salinity. It's one of the quickest tests, but it's also one of the most important. Now, most of you out there, if you're early in the hobby, have one of those float style gauges that tell you the salinity based on how that arm is floating in a column of water that you fill from your tank. I used to use that method for a long time, but I gave it up because it became inaccurate. At one point in time, it was telling me that my salinity was 1.020 when it was 1.025. There was some corrosion on the arm. I don't know what was happening, but it was off. And it was causing me to try to add more salt when I really shouldn't have. It wasn't until my friend came by and brought me this thing that I realized that my salinity was way off. So let me show you how to use a refractometer. I really think it's worth the investment. It's a little bit more than, say, those bubble level ones, but you'll thank yourself later when your fish are not dying. So you take a little bit of water from your aquarium. There's a little glass piece that's sitting right on the front of the refractometer. You just put a couple of drops there, don't need much. Then you fold over the plastic sheath, the plastic cover, and you will see, let's see if I can get it there. There you go. You can see that spread all the way across the front edge of that. Now there's a very thin amount of seawater there, of your reef aquarium water. Enough that light passing through this glass is refracted in a certain way based on how much salt is in that water. How do you see it? Well, you simply look through the bottom part up into a light source. I have some light up there, so I'm going to look and I can see that my salt is perfect. 1.024. That's it. Okay, so here we go. This is what we have. It's kind of intimidating, to be honest, but let me walk you through it so that you can easily go through any one of these chemical tests and be pretty confident about it. First, let me show you some of the things I have here. I have a wastewater container, okay? This is what I squirt some of the wastewater into after I've done the test. You should always bathe your test tubes, you know, before you use them again, and I keep my wasted test tubes right here. Some of the other things I have, when you are cleaning, this is a really nice thing to have. This is a scrub brush I found at the dollar store. It does a really good job of cleaning up test tubes. The calcium and some of these other tests create a little bit of a film, and you don't want to carry that film onto future tests. I also have a full container of reef water. Obviously, you're only going to need a small amount of this. Most of these tests only use 5 milliliters. I always grab it from one of the most flowing areas right in front of one of the power heads where water is moving. If you take water from a stagnant area, I don't know, it's possible that you might have some buildup of nitrates there. So to begin, I'll start with the API test. So the first test I'm going to do is pH. So I'm going to take my test tube and fill it up with 5 milliliters of tank water. Now what you'll find is that 5 milliliters, if you take it exactly, is actually a little bit higher than the line in the test tube. So just goes to show that you should try to use as accurate a method as possible when you're doing these measurements. I use my syringe here with the 5 milliliter mark right there. So the next thing I'm going to do is follow the instructions on the pH bottle. 5 drops, one of the easiest tests to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you cap it, turn it a couple of times, and then take a look at its color. Next up, we'll do ammonia because it's the first step in the biological breakdown cycle. How nerdy does that sound? So I take a test tube, fill up 5 milliliters. Test bottle number 1 requires 8 drops. Simply tip it over. Bottle number 2 is 8 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can see it reacting almost immediately. Cover it. And then take a look at its color. Next up is nitrite. Let's see here. This is one that's very easy, just 5 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cap it, flip it, and check it. Okay, so now we're going to go to the nitrate test. Just a quick note, be sure not to put your fingers on the top lid, the top rim of this test tube, because your finger carries with it certain traits, and you don't want those traits to carry over into your test. Bottle number 1. 10 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now on this one, it says in the instructions to rotate the test tube a few times between adding the first tube and the second tube. So I'm going to uncap this and get it ready for the bottle number 2. Now, bottle number 2 requires that I shake the bottle vigorously for 30 seconds. So let me do that. Okay, finished. Take and pour in 10 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now you shake the test tube again for 1 minute. Next up, let's test calcium. I have a test from API for calcium, so let's see what she says. Again, 5 milliliters. The first bottle, you add 10 drops. Once you put the bottle number 1 in, shake it for about 10 seconds. Next, you have bottle number 2. Bottle number 2 should be shaken for about 10 seconds. Now this test is different from other tests. This test is about a changing of color. Basically, what you're looking at is the material inside to change from pink to blue, and you have to count the drops in between each shake. We'll start off at 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Pink. 11, 12. I'm going to take a piece of paper, put it under. Okay, there we go. That's better. 13, 14. 15, 16. (17, 18). So the API test gave me 20. Okay, copper test. Same thing here, 5 milliliters to start. 10 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Shake up and down for 10 seconds. And I don't know if you can see this, but it's white, the way it should be. You don't want any copper in your system. Okay, so those were all my API tests. Now, let's do the SALIFERT test so you can compare some of the same tests together to see if they're accurate or not accurate. The SALIFERT tests are a little bit more time consuming. They require a little bit more of the method that we used on the API calcium test. We'll start with ammonia. Okay? Same as last time. First things first, add 2 milliliters to the vial. You're dealing with very, very small amounts of water. Next, take and fill this syringe all the way up to the 1 milliliter mark. For this test, it's important that you have exactly 1 milliliter worth of liquid in your syringe. Now, sometimes you can get a bubble just at the end of the stopper, but at this point, you just want to make sure that you have 1 milliliter. Even the stopper is beyond 1 milliliter, you can tell that the liquid inside is at the 1 milliliter mark. Now take and put half of the syringe into the water and then stir, swirl for about 30 seconds. Okay, now put the rest in and swirl. Now let it sit for about 3 minutes and then check the color. Now your ammonia level should be at 0. Well, I think I have a little bit of ammonia in my system. I would say it's just below the 0.25 mark. I think I need to do a water change. We're going to do a water change anyways. Let me put this to the side. Again, one of my favorite tests, because it's pretty easy, is a nitrite test. So you have powder and you have water basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1 milliliter of water to the test vial, and you're going to add 1 spoon of powder. Just empty it in there, swirl around for about 20 seconds, and then you're going to let it sit for 3 minutes. Again, nitrites should be at 0. You shouldn't be having any color there. If you do, you might need a water change or further investigation. I would have to say that that is pretty clear. Like I said, if you have some, might need a little water change. Now let's try nitrates. Okay, with this test, we're going to put 1 milliliter of water into the container. 4 drops of the NO3 solution. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then 1 scoop of the powder. Okay. Do not shake this. You're just going to swirl it around really easy for about 30 seconds. When you're finished, let it sit for 3 minutes and then check at the end. I can see a little bit of color there starting to develop. Any color means that you have some nitrates in your system. So we'll let that sit, and then we will judge at the end what kind of problem I have. Not good. So it means I need a water change. None of us are perfect, but you want to catch these things when they do happen. All right, now we'll do hardness, KH. KH is fairly simplistic. With the 5 milliliter syringe, add 4 milliliters of tank water. I never read that far. For the first couple of tests, I kept adding 5 milliliters. 4 milliliters. Shake the KH indicator bottle a couple of times and then put 4 drops into the test vial. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the KH solution. Now this is something that is a little bit different from the last test that we did. It's important that the end of the stopper stops at 1 milliliter. No matter if there's a little bit of air in there or not, it stops at the 1 milliliter. So I'm going to pull this up. Even though the water is not at 1 milliliter, the stopper is sitting at the 1 milliliter mark. Make sure that is the case. Because what you're measuring here is what's left in the syringe, and you're using that 1 milliliter marker as your indicator. So now you start to add drop-wise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start dropping in here, and we're looking for it to change to pink. Oh, now did you see that? It was starting to change. Then I start to drop the drops a little bit slower. 1, okay, 2, okay, 3, almost, 4, there we go, 5, there we go. All right, I'll add 1 more, and then we get the full change. Okay, so the material has changed from blue until pink. Now, this is where the test is very critical. You look at what's left and where the mark of the stopper is sitting. At the stopper mark, I have 0.35 remaining. Okay, it's halfway between 4 and 3. Not where the water is, where the stopper is. So 0.35. Okay? So now I look at my schedule and 0.35 is too high. My KH is too high. So there you go. Now I know that my KH is too high. That could be a problem that's creating havoc in my tank as well. Okay? So I'm going to show you some steps in lowering that later, but now this is just about the test. So you can take the reagent, it's fine, you just were dropping it in and you squirt it back into the container, cap it, discard your liquid, and we start with the next test. Now I have a chart that I keep all of my records on every time I do a test. I'll include that as well as all the test sheets on the video here. So if you go down to the bottom and look at the links, I'll give you all of my tools. Okay? So now let's go with magnesium. Okay, this test is ready. We're going to do magnesium now. Magnesium comes with a 2 milliliter syringe because it takes 2 milliliters of water into the container. Try and make sure you get exactly 2 milliliters. If you get a bubble in there, just squirt it out and try again. As soon as you got 2 milliliters, okay, then put it into the container. Okay, now what we're going to do is add 5 drops of the Mg1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now that first drop was a little bit hairy. I saw it drop outside of the vial, so I went forward. But if you think that anything went in there besides those 5 drops, you have to start fresh and do the test over again. I'm going to take my syringe, same as before. I'm going to plunge up 1 milliliter. Again, you're not looking at where the liquid stops, but where the plunger stops. We're also going to add 1 spoon of powder. Okay. Now, same as before. We're going to add until the product changes color. Right. You see that change? It happens pretty quick, so you got to keep an eye on it. If you look at the syringe now, you'll notice that the stopper, or 0.11, 1350. It's pretty good. Okay, so for calcium, first thing we're going to do is add 2 milliliters to the syringe. Don't mix it yet, okay? Don't mix it. We're going to mix it in a second after we add 8 drops of the Ca2. Shake it for 10 seconds. Okay, next. All right. 0.3. That means that my calcium is a little bit low. Okay, so the next test we're going to do is for phosphate. This isn't a test I do very often. I think that my phosphates are pretty under control, but I'm going to take 10 milliliters using the 5 milliliter vial 2 times. And there's 2. Okay. Then I am going to take the PO4 first reagent. I'm going to put 4 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Swirl for 10 seconds. Okay. Then add 1 scoop of the powder. And spin it for 30 seconds.
Now you take it against a blue background and you try and catch if there's any color in there.
Finally, iodine. So, with iodine, it's a little bit unique. You have to test 2 different types. First, you're going to test for iodide. So, we're going to take this and add 2 milliliters of water. We're going to add 4 of the I1 and swirl for 10 seconds. All right, we're not going to use the 2. We're going to go directly to the 3 for this test. And we are going to add 4 drops and gently swirl for 2 to 3 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. After 4 minutes, you check it against the card. I personally find that iodide is very difficult to see. Maybe even it's hard to see on the screen. I would say that my level is around 0. But let's try now to do the test for iodate. This one is similar. We're going to take this and add 1 milliliter. Add 1 drop of the 2. Stir for 10 seconds. Four drops of 3. Swirl for 10 seconds. Okay. All right, after 3 minutes, you check it. Okay, so what I'm realizing is my trace elements are really low. I am lacking in a few elements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little water change. I'll let you do it with me. Okay, so you saw the chemical test and it revealed that I have some problems with my water. I'm not ashamed of it. All of us have problems from time to time, and I was gone for a long time, which allowed the tank to kind of fall out of whack. So what I'm going to do right now is one of the most important things to try and get control of your aquarium is to add fresh RODI, salt mixed water, and do some water changes. So I'm going to do a water change right now, and I'm going to show you how I do that. So I have already made a bucket of fresh water. The water is very pure. As a matter of fact, I have an inexpensive electronic TDI meter, and this helps me to monitor my RODI system and make sure that it's not out of whack. And I can see that I'm at about 3 parts per million, which is perfect. So what I'm going to do now is add the salt. Okay, so this is going to be where I'm going to remove the water from. I'm taking it out from the top of the tank, and it's going to drop into this waste water container that I have. Now I'm going to set up the good water to go in. Okay, so we're all set. Now, one note, if you do have an auto top off, something that's putting water in, if it gets too low, I suggest you disconnect that. You can never get it perfect, and sometimes you'll confuse a machine as you're removing water and putting water in at the same time. Just take it out, plug it back in at the end, and then continue on. I'm going to take the pump end and put it right in between the first and the second stage of the sump, and then start the process. I always like to carry around these clips. They're very useful. I'll clip it in so it doesn't move around too much. All right. Now with that in, it's simply a process of putting the water in here and taking the water out there. So let's rock and roll. I'm going to plug in the pump and then start the process. So now that water is being put into the tank, I need to take it out. It's easy as taking a sip. Now, whoo, tastes great. Now, my tank's great because I got a little seam here, and I can put the tube in between the seam. It makes this side taken care of. While this is being done, I'm going to monitor the other side. So now all it is a balancing act. You're trying to put the water in and take the water out at the exact same pace, and don't suck up any fish in the process. One of my more stupid fish named Dory, she's a blue tang. She investigated the tube too close and ended up getting sucked into the wastewater container. But things are going well. Oh, another note. The protein skimmer is based on water level as well. And as the water level rises, if you're putting water in faster, it'll go out of whack too. So I'm going to unplug that as well. All right. Very rarely do I hear the silence related to not having your protein skimmer on, because it runs 24 hours. It looks like we're almost finished putting water from the good water into the tank. Once that happens, this is going a little faster than taking the water out of the tank. Then you can monitor that, and as soon as that's the same level as the water that you put in, then you can stop the process. It's been really nice showing you this. I hope that you learned some things, and You know, some of the reef professionals out there know this like the back of their hand, but you know, it's always good to review. With the last bit of water, I like to disconnect the pump, take it out of the tank here, and then I'll just put it in manually. I'll just dump it into a bucket and put it in. Just some other things that I've done. Now, my calcium was a little bit low, so I have a dosing pump. I increased the amount of dosage per interval, and my alkalinity was a little off too. So I adjusted that and brought everything into par. How do you stop a siphon? Very easy, just pull it out of the water. I love gravity. Again, thanks for watching, and remember, may your pH never waver and your nitrates never rise. Well, never rise again. Bye-bye.